Here we have the ASUS Vivobook S532. Now there's a little bit of a polarizing opinion on this channel of whether the ASUS Vivobook series are any good. They're cheaper models, and frankly even some of the higher end ones come with really bad screens, and they always kind of cut some corners in some way to kind of make it a not so desirable laptop. Even though they're very cheap and they tend to come with a lot of power for that, a lot of bang for your buck if you will, there's still something about them that leaves users wanting a little bit more. So today we're going to find out if this new version that has a second screen and the touchpad is any good, or if it's a gimmicky piece of shit. I'm gonna go ahead and cut to the chase here, just run down some of the specs. This one has a 10th generation i7 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, a 1 terabyte user upgradable NVMe solid state drive, and a 15.6 inch full high definition touchscreen. And to boot, it has another little touchscreen there at the trackpad. Now, the thing about this laptop is that it is screaming fast, and it's got a lot of pretty decent I/O on it, so you'd think on paper that this thing is going to be pretty great. And I think maybe it might be, but here's what you should know. So for starters, the battery life on this thing is pretty paltry. I would say in our user tests, we only got anywhere between 4 to 5 hours, and that seems to be about on par with what most people tend to get with this particular ASUS Vivobook. So while that's not the worst battery life in the world you can get in a laptop these days, it's certainly not the best either, and in today's day and age, that's not very mobile, if you will. And I think one of the reasons why it doesn't get that great of battery life, aside from the powerhouse processor and graphics card and all that stuff that it has in it, by the way, this does have an NVIDIA card, but because it's also powering a second screen. You see, one of the biggest selling points of this particular Vivobook is that it has the Screenpad built in, which is sort of like, what it did is it turns the trackpad into another sort of LCD screen that you can manipulate not just as a trackpad, but also open applications, and it's almost like an Android interface. Basically, you can set up apps and sort of shortcuts. It's kind of a nifty idea. The thing is though, is that in practice, we didn't exactly find it that useful, and in fact, if anything, it kind of got in the way. It seems that whenever you wanted to move the mouse around the screen, it would always sort of bump itself down to the bottom. So in other words, you can actually track the mouse down into the trackpad area. And it also seemed that whenever you wanted to immediately start working on something and use the trackpad, let's say you're like in a Word document typing away and now you shift to move the cursor somewhere, for whatever reason, it decided to put itself back in the app mode. So then you have to hit the little trackpad icon, which then turns it back into trackpad mode, which then allows you to manipulate the mouse cursor. And it's just kind of one more step that you have to take, and possibly unnecessarily. But I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick rundown on how this thing works and how one can expect to interface with it. So I'm gonna do that now. So the first thing you get when you're using the Screenpad is a very Android-like screen. You can click on the second to right icon from the left, which brings it to trackpad mode. And that allows you to obviously use it as a trackpad with a left and right click. You hit the little X at the top right corner to close that out. You can hit the leftmost button, which connects it over to My ASUS. And then you can just sort of scroll around the screen, much like you can on an Android phone. You have recent items there at the bottom. You can do everything from different screens. They call them desktops. And if you scroll over to the very left side, you can add new desktops. You can kind of add apps and shortcuts to that page as well. And then of course, the rightmost icon is sort of like a settings page where you can add little groups and an app navigator, Screenpad lock, that kind of stuff. You can also control the brightness as well. Interacting with the Screenpad is decent. It is responsive and can be helpful, I think, in some situations, but overall we found it a little bit gimmicky and probably not useful to most people. And there you go, that's how you use the Screenpad trackpad. And the thing about it is it doesn't really detract from the performance of the trackpad. It's glass and it feels good, it's very responsive. It doesn't ghost that bad. In fact, it certainly ghosts a lot less bad than a lot of ASUS trackpads do. The only thing is it might make the sort of click, the actual physical click on it maybe a little bit mushy, but nevertheless, it does have a pretty good tactile feel to it. It's responsive. It is overall a nice trackpad and it's a good size. I just think that the whole Screenpad thing is more gimmick than it is helpful, but hey, I don't want to yuck your yum if you like it. You just should expect to know that maybe it's not the best thing in the world. Otherwise, this laptop is pretty well equipped. It comes with a webcam and a dual microphone array. And here is an example of what that sound quality is. Here's what the goddamn webcam looks like, people.
This is a test of the webcam on the ASUS Vivobook S532.
So as you can see, the webcam footage is respectable and will certainly do the job for most Zoom calls, Skype, that work from home business type thing. Now let's talk about the keyboard. For some reason, ASUS can't get it into their heads that silver keys with black text on it is borderline unusable at best. Now, at least the one saving grace with this particular Vivobook is that it does come with the backlight in the keyboard. So long as you have that turned on, it is a little bit easier to see the keys in day-to-day operation. But nevertheless, the keyboard, if you don't have that backlight turned on, and this goes across all silver keys with black lettering ASUS Vivobooks, they are just impossible to see the keys. And it is a big detractor for most users. They don't like that you can't see the keyboard. And I really wish that ASUS would solve this issue by just simply coloring their keys something different. That said, the keyboard is responsive. It feels pretty good. It's got nice tactile response, and I don't think that you'll make a whole lot of typos on it, but I think your average person could use it very well as like a sort of student notebook, whether you're typing Word documents, productivity, nonprofits, contract writing, this kind of stuff. So by all accounts, using the keyboard is not too bad, but I just think that they need to change the key cap color. Now this is one of the few ASUS Vivobooks that doesn't have an absolutely abhorrent screen. So this one does come with a 15.6-inch full high definition screen, and it is a lot brighter and crisper than most ASUS Vivobook screens are. It is still slightly more mottled than some of the screens you might get on, like, let's say an Acer or a Dell. I'm just not sure like what ASUS is doing to like sort of miscalibrate these things, but you can actually dial in the calibration on these screens pretty well. ASUS has some applications you can download from their website that allow you to kind of color calibrate and just sort of soften things up a little bit and make it really nice. So again, as far as the screen quality is concerned, it is certainly one of the better with ASUS, but you know, nothing to write home about, I suppose. This one comes with the Sound by Harman Kardon, which, as we all have learned by now, is basically bullshit. Speaker quality is okay. They get loud enough. There's not really that much bass, and as far as trebles are concerned, it distorts maybe a smidge. Usable, you can listen to a podcast, you could certainly listen to some music on it if you had to, but ideally you're gonna want headphones on this thing, even if you're probably not an audiophile, you'll just want some headphones to get some good audio fidelity. Who is this notebook for? Well, I'm not totally sure. It's a very powerful notebook, and it's nice by all accounts. It's kind of got decent sort of metals and plastics on it. It feels maybe a little bit on the cheaper side, like the hinge is slightly wobbly. By the way, it does have that ergo hinge on it that the other ASUS Vivobooks have, which is kind of nice. But anyway, so you know, build quality is like pretty decent on it all in all. It could probably take a beating if you're like a student or a traveler and you need a 15.6-inch screen. It's going to probably patina and take some hits better than other notebooks out there. Certainly it's a lot stronger than the other cheaper ASUS Vivobooks out there. That said, if you want something like really hardcore that can take a beating, you might want to look elsewhere, but otherwise decent enough build quality. So maybe, and also the battery life, because it's so bad, if you're like a traveler constantly running around in airports, you're also not going to want this notebook, because again, 4 to 5 hours with battery these days, that's not a traveler's notebook. But if you're like maybe producing audio, maybe doing a bit of video editing, maybe doing a little bit of gaming, this kind of thing, then this notebook is probably not going to be too bad. In terms of input and output, it has a mini camera card reader on this side. It's got a dual mic and headphone jack right here, USB-C, USB super speed type A, HDMI port, and then where you plug it in, because it doesn't run on solar energy. And then on this side, we've got 2 USB regulars. So as far as input and output is concerned on this laptop, it's not too bad. Again, you could use this for certainly most productivity options. If you need to have a lot of storage, you can use that USB-C. Again, you can plug in an audio switch on there if you needed to do any kind of audio processing. Video processing, it has that NVIDIA card. You can do a little bit of video editing on it. With a 1 terabyte solid state drive, 16 gigs of RAM and an i7, you can certainly chunk out even probably like 4K videos under, maybe like under 5 minutes. Certainly do like 1080p videos up to probably as large as like 30-minute videos if you had to. A couple of other things to note. This one has Wi-Fi 6 built in. It also has Bluetooth 5.0, so as far as wireless digital age is concerned, this thing certainly has pretty much anything that you could want in it. By all accounts, I like this notebook. I don't love it. I think that it has a place if you're looking for something with like decent I/O. I mean, it's not the best I/O, but it's decent I/O. If you're looking with something with decent I/O, like you don't really care about the battery life too much. You like that sort of ASUS Vivobook price to performance ratio, the ergo hinge, the build quality, the look, the ASUS name, whatever it is. I wouldn't say you should buy this notebook because of that Screenpad though, and unfortunately I think most people are. If they're looking for the ASUS Vivo or a higher end ASUS Vivobook, it's either going to come with it or they've specifically set out to buy one with it. And I'm really not sold on the Screenpad idea yet. I do think that ASUS needs to go back to the drawing board. The problem is that ASUS is the kind of company where when they launch an idea but it doesn't quite hit all the marks that they needed to, they'll tend to just sort of forget about it rather than expand on it or improve upon it. Apple is pretty good about that. Typically when they come out with a failing item, arguably the Touch Bar, which is, I guess, Apple's sort of version of this thing, they'll sort of try to keep it going as long as they can. But ASUS, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see too many more notebooks with this coming in the future. Either that or it's going to redefine their whole business and you'll see all of their notebooks with this in the future. Not sure yet. But yeah, wouldn't buy this notebook if you need good battery life. Wouldn't buy this notebook if you're like a serious gamer. You know, you can game on it. You can do Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox, this kind of stuff. I probably wouldn't play any AAA titles at max settings though or anything like that. It's just not that kind of notebook. It's more for productivity, for video, audio processing. You know, again, good notebook all in all. Better battery life, better keycap color, maybe a slightly better webcam. Webcam's okay. And Screenpad, all right. So that's the ASUS Vivobook S532. One of the few ASUS Vivobooks that doesn't just have one shitty screen, it's got two okay screens. Anyway, we hope this video was helpful to you. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the comment section. We'll be back with another video real soon.